You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there and welcome. As always, I am so grateful that you chose to press play today, whenever or wherever you are. At the time of this recording, I am living in the week leading up to Thanksgiving, and I can't even freaking believe that another round of holidays is upon us already. How is this happening? And how is it a big damn surprise every time? I was talking with a client about this phenomenon earlier today. It's like Halloween rolls around, which, side note, is such a fun time for me. I love celebrating fall and seeing all of the kids in their costumes and jacked up on sugar. They are simply precious. Even the teenagers. In fact, especially the teens. They are precious too, with their pillowcases for bags and half-assed costumes, because you know what? They aren't out stirring up trouble. Not in that moment. I don't care how old you are. If you show up at my house and you just want to kind of recapture that youthful innocence and fun for a few hours, I am here for you, my darlings. In fact, I much prefer giving candy to teenagers than I do toddlers and infants that are being carried around or pushed in strollers by adults who are going to eat all of that candy. Those are the ones I give a hard time to. But this is how it starts every year. We know this to be true, so I don't know how we are surprised by it. Well, actually I do. We get immersed in our daily lives and hectic schedules. That's how. So Halloween rolls around, and the very next day it's November. Surprise, surprise. And then we are suddenly scrambling because we haven't yet made our list for either Thanksgiving or Christmas or Diwali, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Yule, whatever the holidays you may celebrate. Much less even begun to shop for gifts or plan or all of the things. It's like we finish our calendar year in a state of frenzy and breathless activity. Oh, take just a few minutes with me today. Chill out and listen as I share how to navigate politics at Thanksgiving. Or honestly, any other time. It's just that it's that time of year, this time of year, in real time. And it's a source of strain for many of us when we think about visiting extended family. And maybe it's been a while. Maybe you're like our family and we skipped all of the visits in 2020 due to either travel restrictions or personal choice or whatever the case may have been. Listen, I am so looking forward to visiting with my mom next week. It will have been 2 years. I am so ready. And maybe part of what your takeaway from 2020 was included a deeper appreciation of the things you used to view as harder, like taking long road trips, trying to make everyone happy with the menu you've created. And instead, this year, you're in a better space to just go with the flow and let whatever unfolds happen. Because it was always going to anyway. That was definitely a solid takeaway for me when I consider our collective experience of 2020. So I thought of this particular topic based on a question I posed on social media a few weeks ago around how to enjoy the holidays with family. I asked, what would a great experience look like to you? And so many responses said, no politics, which is exactly why I'm going to go there. Because you know what? You can say that all day long. But when it comes to your extended family and being around people that you don't get to interact with on a daily basis, it is inevitable that they are going to want to talk about what matters to them. And right here, right now, in the US, the topic of politics continues to bubble up to the surface of nearly any intimate conversation, or sometimes just casual interaction. The agendas of the politicians and the media and the machine, the matrix in which we are living, is centered around these topics that hit us deeply and emotionally. It is not about establishing a rule that politics cannot be discussed during Thanksgiving because you don't get to control what Uncle Jim says after a few drinks. It is about what personal boundaries will you establish ahead of time when that happens. How will you respond or react? Are you going to try to debate or just let it roll? That is what I'm here for today, my friend, because we don't get to control when a topic we don't want to discuss comes up. What we can do is prepare ourselves ahead of time for how we process it. And I chose politics specifically because, again, in the US, that has rapidly become one of the most divisive, polarizing topics that we can engage in. And this is absolutely by design. I will get to that. There used to be a saying, my husband and I recall it growing up, and maybe you do too, that you don't discuss politics or religion, period. You just don't do it. Stay away from those two things and everything else will be fine. You will be able to maintain your relationships, all other aspects of a solid connection that can remain intact if you don't bring either of those concepts into your discussion. Not with family or coworkers, maybe some of your friends, but that's iffy. Maybe you have to feel them out first and see if they are safe to open up to, in fact, truly connect with. That's so interesting, right? Because why would you not want to truly connect with your family? Well, we all have our reasons, of course. We all have our history or our own version of history. Family relationships are honestly the most complex of all because we don't get to choose our family. Although, perhaps, without getting too deep, perhaps our souls did choose this particular family for us to learn from, to grow, and to evolve. I mean, it is possible. So, I'm not talking about a Friendsgiving gathering here. I absolutely love that concept. I love that those who feel displaced or disconnected, who find and create the family that they need at the time, instead of spending the holidays alone, I find that to be one of the most beautiful things that has spun up in recent times. Kind of like creating your own celebration with whomever you love, and it's just wonderful. It's a little bit about bucking tradition when it doesn't resonate with you, and it's also about moving toward the experience that you really want to have and to create. Now, I just needed to express that I'm talking specifically about those of us who still do connect to the traditions of our family of origin, whether that be through birth or adoption, the family that you were raised in. When I think about how lovely a Friendsgiving is, it is because at the very heart of it, you are choosing to be with who you want to be with now. And when I think about our family of origin, I think about the ties that bind. All of that history and all of the experiences compounded over your lifetime that don't necessarily feel like choices, especially when we were children. And what happens for all of us is that we continue to have experiences. We continue to learn, grow, and evolve. If we aren't doing that, we are dying, figuratively or literally. I want you to sit with that for a minute before I reintroduce the concept of politics and why so many of us want to avoid any conversation around that unless that conversation is with like minds. If we are not continuously learning, evolving, or growing, we are dying, either figuratively or literally. And so I want to invite you to stop trying to control what other people are thinking and how their own paths are unfolding, and instead take a step back and shift your perspective too. They are having their own personal human experience, and you are having yours. And here's the kicker. It's not even about politics at all. It's about humanity. Hear me on this one, because I have heard a lot of perspectives and I am open to understand humans and how we function. It is my work. It is my passion. It's not about politics. It never was. What it's about is the innate desire to be seen, heard, and validated. Think about that for just a minute. For some of our family members, politics have become a central sphere of influence and importance. They can get fired up about it. They can spend a lot of hours of their days absorbing what they already believe to be true, because confirmation bias has a very strong pull. That is how our brains work. Our brains are literally running a default program of show me evidence for what I already believe to be true. And the rapid evolution of the internet has made that evidence even more accessible. 24/7, all day, every day. There's a scientific term for this that I've mentioned in earlier episodes, the reticular activation system, where your eyes are going to see exactly what your mind is already thinking and believing. And I'm only teeing this up for you because I want you to have the opportunity for greater awareness, understanding, perspective, and perhaps even compassion when your Uncle Jim brings up his political values at Thanksgiving. Because all this time, you have established the perfect experience in your mind is that Uncle Jim won't say a word about his passions. And I need you to see that's where he's coming from. He won't say a word about his passions during your family gathering because that's how you want it to play out. It would be easier for you because you already know he's on the opposite end of the spectrum, and so you don't want to debate or argue. But after a few hours of Uncle Jim being on his soapbox, you might just snap and have to say something. Why? Because you're thinking he's wrong and you're right. And please hear me on this also. That is the heart of the matter at play when we say we will have a great experience as long as no one talks politics. We say this because we have chosen a side, and so have they. We have chosen sides because we're all being played. We are being played by the media and the narratives and the overall design of this matrix. Trust me when I tell you, they know exactly what they are doing. We make most of our decisions based on emotion. And so they, in air quotes, the collective they, the nebulous they, have figured out the formula of mental manipulation based on how our brains work. They put it out on the airwaves and the interwebs, and the next thing you know, we are sucked right in. Oh my God, that's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. They are misguided. I am right. They are wrong. Confirmation bias. We are the sum of our experiences and our continued interactions. And our brains are elastic. They can be programmed with new information, and that's what is happening when we are constantly feeding and watering our minds with what we already believe to be true. We are simply reaffirming and becoming more deeply attached to whatever the narrative of the moment might be. Literally propaganda. And this is coming from both sides of the political spectrum. So I'm just putting this out there. I'm not trying to say that my position is or would be better than yours. I will also add that my position, and yes, I do have one, is not the same position I held when I was 18 years old. Actually, it's not even close. I had a completely different circle of influence back then. And the reason that it's not even close is because I have learned, I have grown, and I have evolved in so many ways. And for that, I am grateful. I am solid and grounded with where I am today, just as I was confident and cocky about where I stood when I was a young adult. I'm also open to learning new things and having a deeper, richer experience. I am not set in concrete. I am happy to explore alternate viewpoints, however I decide to do that. Now, I certainly have the choice, and this is what we all need to decide ahead of time, not to engage with Uncle Jim or my in-laws or anyone else in a debate about which side I'm on and who is right or wrong. That is what we can all decide in advance of our visits with family. What boundaries are we going to set, and what actions will we take when, not if, but when, a topic of conversation is introduced that we don't agree with, that we don't even want to hear about, much less engage in. We don't get to control what others will do or say, but we do get to control how we will respond. Or not, how we won't respond, or how we will steer or guide the conversation to something else entirely. Hey, Uncle Jim, do you remember that time I wrecked my bike in the creek and you pulled me out? How funny was that? I mean, I was terrified at the time, but looking back, I can laugh. Many of us are standing on our pedestals of rightness and pointing at those who disagree with us as being in the wrong. In fact, it's very righteous behavior. I'm right, you're wrong, go fuck yourself, never speak to me again. It can quickly turn into that if we don't enter into engaging in conversation with our eyes wide open, that the person we are speaking with is on his or her own pedestal of rightness, that they have their reasons, and they are just as deeply attached to them as you are to yours. If you do not enter into a conversation with the purpose of controlling the outcome, meaning you're going to get them to see the light the same way that you do, to agree with you, to validate you, to see and hear you, and to confirm that you are right, then the bias just dissipates. It's no longer a factor. You get to be who you want to be, and you get to allow them to be who they are. You're not trying to sway them over to your side. We are far weaker as a collective when we are divided. And the powers that be know this full well. That's why it all feels so polarized right now. It is happening by design. The question is not who is right. The question is, who do you love and why? That is the question. Now, remember, I saw a post on social the other night about a woman who was so torn that her husband was on the complete opposite end of the political spectrum. that she wondered if they even had any shared values remaining. And that is the question, isn't it? Of course, you get to decide if politics is going to be the determining factor of your relationships with friends and especially with family. I just ask that you ask yourself, what do you love about him in this moment? That's what I asked in response to that post I just referred to. What do you love? Maybe if you take this single factor out of the equation, you'll still have a whole list of characteristics of this other human that you absolutely adore. And maybe, just maybe, this one thing doesn't have to come between you. Or maybe it does. Either way, you decide. But the one thing that I encourage you to decide for your Thanksgiving experience with extended family is to decide that you will not be shaken by opposing political beliefs. Not to decide that they won't bring it up, because they probably will. That is how the universe works. It sends you all of the triggers. Many times they're channeled through people you care for deeply. It's to decide in advance how you will react and respond when they do bring it up. As Rumi says, love is the bridge between you and everything. So this is the challenge. How can you love your family members anyway? How can you love them unconditionally and regardless of their political leanings or religious affiliation or sexual preference or anything else? How can you just love them as deeply flawed humans? And how can you see yourself as also deeply flawed and love yourself anyway? When you do bring it back to love, everything else fades away. And this is what we're here for. I truly believe that. So avoid if you wish, but know this. I've been around for a little bit now, and I can assure you that if you try to avoid something or someone, whatever lesson it is that you are meant to receive is going to find its way to you anyway, eventually, somehow, some way. It's not about politics. It never was. It's about our need to be right, to be seen, heard, validated, and appreciated. Know that for yourself. Know that for them. And simply enjoy your time together. I hope those of you listening in the U.S. have a wonderful Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving, or whatever you have planned. I will pre-record a brief holiday episode for you to go deeper into your love of family next week, whatever that may look like for you. Sending you all of my love. Light up, shine on.